My name is Mitchell Casa, and in this presentation we will be discussing what hydropower is, its influence in economics, the positives and the negative externalities to its use. I will be providing information in this presentation that will allow you to make your own decisions, whether it is a good or bad thing looking into its externalities. By the end of this video, you should know if it is a reliable source of energy and if it can continue to play a role as an energy source in the future. Before I provide information into the subject, we must address the common question, what is hydropower and how does it work? We will dive into what hydropower is first. Hydropower is a way to create energy that is more efficient than its counterpart, fossil fuels. It is a process of using water to power generators that send electricity to a power grid that can power anything that draws electricity, using water and gravity, which will be explained in the next slide. How does it work? Hydropower is a natural use of water flow by sending water through turbines, which in turn spins turbines, then creates electricity in the generator that can be used for whatever is required. In the United States, 81% of renewable energy produced is attributed by the use of hydropower, as stated by Davison in his periodical. Now that you know what hydropower is on a basic level, it is time to dive into the positive and negatives to the use of dams. Hydroelectric power has many positives and negatives, but we are only going to scratch the surface of the subject and go through the basic positives and negatives. The positives to hydroelectric power is that it is a renewable source of energy, it is a great alternative to fossil fuels, there are few environmental impacts compared to other sources of energy, and once a dam is built, it does not require much upkeeping comparatively to other sources of energy. With that said, with every energy source, there are negative externalities involved that can create some difficulties. Hydroelectric power is not an exception to that statement. Dams can cause flooding upstream or drought downstream, damaging the surrounding environment most of the time. In rare cases, it can have a positive influence. Fish spawning patterns are affected because weaker fish are unable to make it up the fish elevators. Dams have attributed to the decline in fish spawning. Dams can have water runoff that cause damage elsewhere. This happened very recently in Oroville, California, which will be explained in greater detail later on in this presentation. First, we will explain the negative effect on water levels. Dams block water from coming downstream and slows the speed of the water that travels through the river. This causes flooding above the dam and will usually submerge landscape near the dam. Because of this blocked water downstream, water level is lower than it would be without the dam, causing droughts for wildlife and suffer from lack of hydration. An example of environmental effects caused by a dam was the breaking of the Oroville Dam in California. This dam had a crack in the ramp and the water would go down, then the water slowly chipped away at the crack in the ramp. Then eventually the water broke free from the confinement of the ramp, causing half a hillside to be ripped apart. In order for the issue to be fixed, they closed the gates where the water exited, causing the water to overflow the wall next to the dam, created an even bigger issue. All of a sudden, with this small crack that the fast water chipped at, until there was a crater in the ramp, allowing the water to escape. While all of this was going on, the dam was not producing electricity to the town, and they temporarily had to be evacuated from the premises. Next, spawning fish are negatively affected by the use of dams, because the only way they can travel up back from the ocean is through the river and passing through the dams. Dams have an elevator system, as depicted in this slide, but as you can imagine, weaker fish struggle to get up the elevator and are unable to get to their spawning grounds. This has attributed to the decreased fish populations because of the lack in fish spawning. Those are the biggest, most influential negative impacts, but now we're going to jump into the positives of hydroelectric power. The most well-known positive of hydroelectric power is that it is a renewable source of energy. That means that the source of energy is not altered or affected when being used in the source of energy. Once the water is used and has gone through the turbines and the power generators, it is returned back to its original path and destination with no alterations to it. Only small amounts of water are lost during this process. It still is far better than renewable source than most fossil fuels, which brings me to my next slide. Hydroelectric power is more efficient than fossil fuels and does not leave a big carbon footprint in the environment or something like coal. Coal affects everything within the surrounding environment, such as air quality as well as the soil quality. The use of hydropower prevents the burning of 22 billion gallons of oil or 100 million tons of coal each year, says Davison. What looks more harmful? Does the coal or the dam look more harmful to the environment in the slide? Next, the coal is taken from the earth, then burned and created energy, then released into the atmosphere, causing issues such as global warming. Water in the use of hydroelectric energy is only passed through the medium and returned into its original destination without any changes being made to it. Compared to each other, the use of hydroelectric power is less harmful than fossil fuels. Renewable resources seem to have less negative externalities comparatively to fossil fuels. There are human negatives and positives as well. Then there are environmental negatives and positives. When deciding what source of energy is the best option, especially with hydroelectric energy, we need to take into consideration all parties in the transaction or people that will be influenced by the transaction. That means that we have to take into account both environmental changes into account with our own human needs, not just caring about humanistic wants first, but considerations for all. This PowerPoint dove into the hydroelectric power is and how it plays a role into society. Now you should be able to draw a conclusion for yourself, finding that the positives outweigh the negatives. In the end, you ask yourself, is it worth it? I hope this video was of assistance and helped you understand hydroelectric power's role in society. I would like to thank all of you for tuning into my presentation, and if you have any questions or comments or concerns, you can leave a comment at the bottom of the video and I will try and respond to it as soon as I can. Thank you,